The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glittered like a cosmos unto itself. Crystalline pillars stretched toward a ceiling that mimicked the night sky of every member world simultaneously. Thousands of delegates from over 300 species filled the tiered seating that spiraled upward in concentric rings. Ambassador Marcus Vega stood alone on the judgment platform, a circular dais suspended in the center of the chamber. His formal diplomatic uniform, navy blue with silver trim, seemed woefully inadequate against the ornate garments of the council representatives. Behind him, 6 other humans waited silently in the witness box, each representing a different continent of Earth. The Grand Arbiter, a towering Zeridian with skin that rippled like liquid mercury, raised all 4 of his upper limbs for silence. The chamber, already hushed with anticipation, fell completely still. Representatives of Earth, the Grand Arbiter's voice reverberated without the need for amplification. You stand before the assembled Galactic Council to hear our judgment. Marcus straightened his shoulders, keeping his expression neutral despite the churning anxiety in his stomach. 2 years of diplomatic missions, technological exchanges, and cultural integration programs had led to this moment. Earth had discovered the hyperspace beacon in their solar system only 5 years ago, bringing humanity into contact with the wider galactic community. They had been so eager, so hopeful. The charges against your species are grave, continued the Arbiter. Genetic instability, psychological volatility, historical propensity for violence, and, most concerning, rapid technological advancement without proportional ethical development. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Marcus could feel thousands of alien eyes studying him, analyzing his every reaction. Ambassador Vega, do you wish to offer a final statement before judgment is rendered? Marcus stepped forward, feeling the subtle gravitational shift as the platform adjusted to his movement. The council had already heard Earth's defense, days of testimony, historical accounts, and promises of peaceful integration. But he knew this was theater, not justice. The decision had been made long before he entered this chamber. Honored Arbiter, esteemed council, Marcus began, his voice steady despite everything. We acknowledge our species' troubled history. We do not hide from it. But I ask you to consider that it is precisely because of our struggles that humanity has developed its greatest strengths: adaptation, innovation, and an unwavering resilience. The Arbiter's silver eyes narrowed. Bold words, Ambassador. Yet they do not address the Council's concerns about the danger your kind poses to galactic stability. With respect, the same qualities that make us dangerous also make us valuable allies, Marcus countered. We've achieved in centuries what took most Council races millennia. We've overcome planetary disasters, unified warring nations, and now reach for the stars with a shared purpose. A sharp, clicking sound interrupted. Laughter from the Ataraxian delegation. Their chief consul, a mantis-like being draped in iridescent fabrics, leaned forward. The human speaks of value, the Ataraxian said, mandibles clacking. But their world has nothing we need. Their technology is primitive. Their resources common. Their only unique trait is how quickly they develop weapons after discovering new principles of science. Marcus felt a flush of anger, but kept his composure. And yet, despite our primitive status, 3 of your trading guilds have already established agreements with Earth corporations. Interesting choices for beings who see no value in us. A tense silence followed. The Ataraxian's compound eyes flashed with something that might have been respect or hatred. Ambassador, the Grand Arbiter interjected, your impertinence does not serve your cause. Neither does this charade of a fair hearing, Marcus replied, abandoning diplomacy. He could feel the shock ripple through the human delegation behind him, but continued nonetheless. Our intelligence agencies have intercepted communications between council members. We know this judgment was decided weeks ago. Gasps and hisses echoed through the chamber. The Grand Arbiter's mercurial skin darkened to a stormy gray. You admit to espionage against the council? He thundered. I admit to protecting Earth's interests, Marcus replied evenly, just as each of you would do for your worlds. We may be newcomers to galactic society, but we understand politics. He turned slowly, meeting the gaze of various delegation leaders. The Malkavian Directorate fears our reproductive rate. The Vorsian Imperium worries about our adaptability to different environments. The Consortium of Aligned Worlds sees potential competition in our resource development methods. Each species he named shifted uncomfortably in their seats. And all of you, Marcus continued, voice rising, fear how quickly we learn, how rapidly we advance, how thoroughly we understand technologies that took your civilizations generations to master. Enough, the Grand Arbiter's voice boomed. You overestimate your importance, human. Your species is a statistical anomaly, nothing more. A dangerous deviation that must be contained before it disrupts millennia of stability. Then get to your judgment, Marcus said quietly. But remember this moment. Remember that we came to you in peace, offering friendship. Remember what you chose instead. The Grand Arbiter raised a ceremonial staff, its crystalline head capturing and refracting the light of 100 different spectral frequencies. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, Earth and its solar system are hereby designated a quarantine zone, effective immediately. All hyperspace beacons in Sol system will be deactivated, all technology exchanges terminated, all diplomatic relations severed. No council species may trade with, communicate with, or visit human territory. Under penalty of severe sanction, the staff struck the floor with a resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's bones. Earth is exiled from galactic society until such time as your species evolves beyond its dangerous predispositions, if ever. This judgment is final and binding. Marcus stood motionless, absorbing the verdict he had expected but hoped to avoid. Behind him he heard Dr. Isabel Wong, Earth's leading xenobiologist, whisper a single devastating word. Why? The Grand Arbiter overheard. Because you are too unpredictable, he answered. Too adaptable. Too hungry for advancement. The stability of galactic civilization cannot accommodate such chaos. Marcus met the Arbiter's silver gaze. Then you've made a grave miscalculation. Oh? The Arbiter's tone was dismissive. And what might that be? Marcus smiled then, a small, knowing expression that caused several nearby delegates to shift nervously. You've just guaranteed that humanity will develop without your oversight or control. You've ensured we'll advance on our own terms, following our own path. And when we return to galactic society, and we will return, we won't come as supplicants seeking admission. He looked around the chamber one final time. We'll come as equals. Or perhaps, his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber, as something more. The return to Earth was solemn. The United Earth Council convened immediately upon the delegation's arrival. Leaders from every nation gathered in New Geneva, the sprawling complex that had replaced the old UN headquarters after the climate wars. They fear us, Marcus explained to the assembled leaders, not for what we are, but for what we might become. President Diallo of the African Union leaned forward. And what exactly is their plan for us now? Quarantine, Commander Torres answered. They're deactivating the hyperspace beacon. We'll be cut off, isolated. They want us to develop so slowly that we pose no threat to their established order. How long? Asked Premier Wu of the East Asian Cooperative. Marcus met their gazes steadily. Forever, if they have their way. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Then a voice spoke from the back. Director Victor Kapoor of the Global Science Initiative. Then we don't play by their rules, he said, eyes gleaming with determination. If they won't let us join their community, we'll build our own. For the next 6 months, humanity prepared. The quarantine would begin once the council delegation reached the edge of the solar system. Ships were recalled, resources stockpiled, and in secret facilities across the globe, research teams worked feverishly on the technologies they had glimpsed during their brief contact with the galactic community. On the day the hyperspace beacon went dark, humanity didn't mourn. They rolled up their sleeves and got to work. The exile had begun. But for humanity, it wasn't an end. It was merely a beginning. The last light of the deactivated hyperspace beacon faded to darkness, leaving Earth truly alone in the cosmos for the first time since first contact. In the central command of the newly formed Terran Defense Initiative, Admiral Jackson Rivera watched the final readings disappear from the monitoring systems. And so it begins, he said quietly to the room of grim-faced officers and scientists. Dr. Nadia Volkov, head of the Reverse Engineering Division, stood beside him. Her eyes never left the data screens as she spoke. The Council thinks they've locked us in a cage. They don't realize they've just locked themselves out of our laboratory, the Admiral smiled. Exactly how I like to fight. With the enemy underestimating us, 5 years into Earth's exile, the planet had transformed. The initial panic and economic chaos had given way to a singular, focused determination that spread across nations and continents. Old rivalries and conflicts were set aside in the face of a common goal: to overcome the Council's quarantine. In the underground complex beneath the Atacama Desert, Director Victor Kapoor led a team of the world's brightest minds through a cavernous chamber housing their most ambitious project yet. The Council thought cutting us off from their technology would stunt our growth, he explained to the visiting oversight committee. But they forgot one critical detail. He gestured to the massive structure that dominated the center of the chamber, a partially constructed drive system unlike anything Earth had developed before. We had 5 years of observing their ships, their communications, their energy systems. Our scientists weren't just making polite conversation during diplomatic exchanges. We were learning, analyzing, understanding. Committee Chairwoman Elena Toussaint studied the structure with narrowed eyes. Is this what I think it is? Yes, Victor confirmed. Our version of their hyperspace drive, based entirely on principles we observed before the quarantine. It's crude compared to theirs, but it will work, finished Dr. Volkov as she joined them. The math is sound. The theory is correct. We're simply approaching the problem from a different angle than they did. How different? Asked the chairwoman. Victor and Nadia exchanged a glance. The Council races developed hyperspace technology over thousands of years, with each advancement building incrementally on the last, Victor explained. They've optimized a very specific approach. But we're starting fresh, Nadia added. No preconceptions, no established doctrine. We're solving the problem with human ingenuity and desperation, a powerful combination. The committee toured the rest of the facility, witnessing projects that would have seemed like fantasy just years earlier. Gravity manipulation systems, advanced materials, science, energy generation methods based on principles glimpsed in alien technologies. How soon until we have a working prototype? Chairwoman Toussaint asked as they completed the tour. For the hyperspace drive? 18 months, Victor replied. Maybe less. Not good enough, the chairwoman responded immediately. The Council expects us to spend centuries developing what they have. We need to move faster. You have 12 months. In the orbiting shipyard above Earth, Admiral Rivera faced similar pressure. The first vessels designed to operate with the new technologies were taking shape, but progress was slower than hoped. We need more resources, he argued during the weekly command briefing. More materials. More personnel. The Resource Allocation Committee has denied your request, replied the bureaucratic representative on screen. Other projects have higher priority. The Admiral's patience finally snapped. Higher priority than our defense? Than our future? The agricultural terraforming of Mars, for one, came the cool reply. Unless your ships can run on empty stomachs. Admiral. The meeting ended in a stalemate. But the conversation weighed on Rivera as he toured the incomplete hull of what would become Earth's first true starship. The framework gleamed in the harsh lighting, a skeleton waiting for its flesh. His comm unit chimed with a message from an unexpected source. Dr. Isabel Wong, the xenobiologist who had been part of the final Council delegation. Admiral, I need to see you immediately. I've found something in my old research data. Something the Council didn't want us to know. 24 hours later, the highest levels of Earth's unified leadership gathered in a secure conference room. Dr. Wong stood before them, face drawn with fatigue but eyes bright with excitement. Before the quarantine, I collected biological samples from 17 different Council species, she explained. Standard protocol for scientific exchange. What wasn't standard was what I found when I recently re-examined those samples with our new scanning technology. She displayed a series of molecular structures on the room's main screen. Every Council species shows evidence of genetic engineering, specific identical markers that couldn't possibly have evolved naturally across such diverse life forms. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Someone engineered them? President Diallo finally asked. Not just engineered them, Dr. Wong corrected. Engineered them to be compatible with each other, to evolve along similar paths despite originating on completely different worlds. But we don't have these markers, said Premier Wu. Exactly, Dr. Wong confirmed. Our DNA is completely natural, unaltered, and that might be precisely what frightens them about us. Admiral Rivera leaned forward. So the Grand Enlightened Galactic Council is made up of species that were designed to work together? By whom? That, Dr. Wong said, is the trillion-credit question. But it gets more interesting. She brought up new data, star charts, astronomical readings, spectral analyses. There are regions of space the Council ships never enter, vast areas marked as navigational hazards on their charts. But when I analyzed the actual stellar data available to us, I found no evidence of anything dangerous. They're avoiding something, murmured Director Kapoor. Or someone. I believe so, Dr. Wong agreed. And I think it's connected to whoever engineered them. The implications were staggering. The Council wasn't just a political entity. It might be a carefully constructed biological and social system, designed for some unknown purpose, and humans were outside that system entirely. The meeting lasted well into the night as they debated the significance of this discovery and how to exploit it. By morning, decisions had been made, resources reallocated, priorities shifted. In the following months, Earth's preparations accelerated with renewed vigor. The first hyperspace test wasn't scheduled for another year, but suddenly, unexpectedly, they were ready in just 7 months. At the control center in the Atacama facility, Victor Kapoor and Nadia Volkov monitored the unmanned probe as it prepared for its historic journey. If this works, Victor said quietly, everything changes. When this works, Nadia corrected him with a thin smile. The probe activated its drive. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a flash of energy that briefly outshone the monitoring instruments, it disappeared. Silence filled the control room as everyone held their breath, watching the long-range sensors for any sign of the probe at its programmed destination, a point just beyond Pluto's orbit 3 minutes past 4, 5. It failed, someone whispered. Then a signal appeared. The probe had arrived, not where they had aimed it, but close enough. Their first hyperspace jump had succeeded, albeit imperfectly. Cheers erupted throughout the facility. Humanity had taken its first step beyond the Council's quarantine. Within weeks, the test was repeated with improved calculations. Then again, and again, each time more accurate, more efficient than the last. 8 years after the exile began, Earth launched its first crewed hyperspace vessel in secret, a small scout ship called the Pathfinder. Its mission, to venture beyond the boundaries of the solar system and explore the nearest star system without alerting the Council's monitoring stations. As the ship prepared for departure, Admiral Rivera addressed its small crew. You're carrying the hopes of our entire species, he told them. But more than that, you're carrying a question the Council never wanted us to ask. What lies beyond their borders that they don't want anyone to find? The crew of the Pathfinder exchanged determined glances. We'll find out, sir, replied Captain Lena Okafor, and when we do, the real journey begins. The Pathfinder vanished into hyperspace, leaving not even a ripple in normal space to mark its passage. The Council's sensors detected nothing. As far as the galaxy knew, humanity remained safely contained. Developing at a properly slow, manageable pace, the Galactic Council had exiled Earth. But in doing so, they had set humanity free to forge its own destiny among the stars. The Pathfinder drifted silently through the outskirts of the Tau Ceti system, its advanced stealth systems rendering it virtually invisible to conventional detection methods. Inside the bridge, Captain Lena Okafor studied the sensor readings with growing excitement. Confirm that signature, she ordered her science officer, Lieutenant Raj Patel. The young man's fingers flew across his console. Confirmed, Captain. The energy pattern matches exactly what Dr. Wong predicted we'd find. It's definitely not natural. Lena allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. 3 months into their covert mission beyond Council space, they had finally found something extraordinary. A massive artificial structure orbiting the 5th planet of Tau Ceti, well hidden, beneath layers of cloaking technology that would have fooled Council sensors completely. But human sensors, developed independently during their exile, operated on different principles. They could see what the Council could not, or perhaps what the Council was deliberately designed not to see. Take us closer, Lena ordered. Maintain stealth protocols. I want visual confirmation. The Pathfinder edged forward, its revolutionary engines barely disturbing the space around them. As they approached the mysterious structure, its true nature began to reveal itself on their view screens. "It's a station," whispered Navigator Diego Mendez, massive, possibly ancient. The structure stretched for kilometers, its architecture unlike anything recorded in the Council databases they had studied. Where Council design favored smooth, flowing lines and crystalline materials, this station was all hard angles and unfamiliar metals that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "No signs of recent activity," reported Security Chief Maya Devereaux. "But the power core is still active. Something's keeping this place running after what might be thousands of years." Lena made her decision. "Prepare an exploration team. I'll lead it myself." Within an hour, Lena floated through the silent, cavernous halls of the station with 5 crew members. Their suits' lights cast long shadows that seemed to dance among the strange, angular machinery that lined the walls. "These symbols," Raj said, examining markings along a corridor. "They don't match any known Council language. Because they predate the Council," came a voice over their comms, Dr. Isabel Wong, analyzing their feed from back on Earth. "If I'm right, you're looking at the written language of those who engineered the Council races." The exploration team continued deeper into the station, documenting everything they found. In what appeared to be a central command center, they discovered still functioning terminals. "Can we access them?" Lena asked. Engineer Omar Farouk studied the interface. "The technology is advanced but follows logical principles. With time, yes." Back on the Pathfinder, the team worked around the clock to understand the alien systems. After 3 days of frustration and limited progress, Omar had a breakthrough. "The system recognized a pattern in our approach," he explained excitedly to the gathered officers. "It's been learning us while we were trying to learn it, and now it wants to communicate." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying symbols that rapidly shifted and changed until they formed recognizable letters. "Earth letters. Identify species," the message read simply. Lena exchanged glances with her officers before responding. "Human, from Earth." A pause, then, "Verification required. Submit genetic sample." After careful consideration, Lena authorized a sample of her DNA to be transmitted to the station's systems. Minutes passed in tense silence before the screen changed again. "Human verification confirmed. Unaltered genome detected. Access granted to Progenitor Archive Station 7. What followed was a flood of information that left the crew stunned. The station was one of several archives left by a species that called themselves the Progenitors, an ancient race that had seeded the galaxy with life over 1 million years ago. But more shocking was the revelation about the Council species. They hadn't just been engineered for compatibility. They had been designed as caretakers, limited in specific ways to prevent them from developing certain technologies or expanding too quickly. "They're glorified gardeners," Maya said in disbelief as they reviewed the data. "Created to maintain the galaxy until the progenitors return. And the progenitors made sure their caretakers wouldn't recognize or access their technology," added Raj. "That's why the Council ships avoid certain regions. Their navigational systems literally cannot perceive what's there." "But we can," Lena said quietly. "Our unaltered DNA, our independently developed technology. We can see what they can't." The implications were staggering. The archive contained technological specifications far beyond anything the Council possessed: propulsion systems, energy generation, material science that would revolutionize human development. "There's more," Omar reported as he delved deeper into the archive. "The progenitors left these stations for species that evolved naturally as we did. They wanted diversity, creativity, qualities they specifically engineered out of the Council races. So the Council's fear of us," Lena began, "is programmed into them," finished Raj. "They're instinctively threatened by natural species because we represent what they were designed to prevent: unpredictable evolution." Lieutenant Devereaux frowned. "If that's true, why haven't other natural species challenged the Council before?" The answer came from the archive itself, displayed on their screens. Previous unaltered species encountered 37. Status: contained or eliminated by caretaker coalition. A chill ran through the bridge. "We're not the first," Lena whispered. "Just the first to discover the truth before the Council could stop us." After 2 weeks of continuous data transfer, the Pathfinder had collected more information than Earth scientists could analyze in decades. But they had also discovered something more immediate and practical: the location of other archive stations, each containing different aspects of progenitor knowledge. As they prepared to return to Earth with their monumental discovery, Lena gathered her crew one last time on the bridge. "What we found changes everything," she told them. "Not just for humanity, but potentially for the entire galaxy. The Council isn't the rightful authority they claim to be. They're tools created for a purpose they've forgotten." "What will Earth do with this information?" asked Diego. Lena's expression grew determined. "That's not for us to decide. But I know this. We were exiled because we didn't fit their controlled system. Now we know why. And now we have the means to chart our own course." The Pathfinder slipped back into hyperspace, leaving the ancient station once again hidden in its silent orbit. But this time, its knowledge went with them. The return to Earth was met with astonishment and frantic activity. Within days, research teams were analyzing the progenitor data, and plans were being formulated for additional missions to other archive stations. In a secure facility beneath the Himalayas, Earth's leadership convened to discuss their next steps. "We have a decision to make," began Admiral Rivera. "Do we announce ourselves to the galaxy and challenge the Council directly? Or do we continue developing in secret, building our strength?" Dr. Wong spoke up. "The Council has existed for 50,000 years. They have vast resources, countless worlds. Despite our discoveries, we remain one planet against hundreds. But with progenitor technology, we could close that gap quickly," countered Director Kapoor. President Diallo raised her hand for silence. "There's a third option. The archive mentioned other natural species that were contained. What if they're still out there, quarantined like us?" A thoughtful silence fell over the room. "We find them," Admiral Rivera said finally. "We build alliances with others who've been cast aside. We create our own community outside the Council's awareness." "An alliance of outcasts," murmured Chairwoman Toussaint. "A shadow network of the naturally evolved." "Not just an alliance," President Diallo corrected. "An alternative. A true Terran empire founded on cooperation rather than control." The decision was made unanimously. Earth would remain hidden from the Council for now, extending its reach to the forgotten corners of the galaxy where other exiled species might be found. 15 years after being cast out from galactic society, humanity had discovered its true place in the cosmos, not as subjects of an ancient system, but as potential liberators from it. In orbit above Earth, a new vessel prepared for launch. Larger than the Pathfinder, more advanced, incorporating the first applications of progenitor technology. Its name was emblazoned on the hull in bold letters: Liberation. Captain Okafor stood on the bridge of her new command, surveying the crew that represented Earth's finest. "Our mission is clear," she told them. "We seek out those like us. We offer them friendship and knowledge. And together, we build something new, something the Galactic Council never imagined possible." As the Liberation disappeared into hyperspace, bound for the coordinates of another quarantined world, humanity took its first step toward building an empire that would one day reshape the stars themselves. The Liberation emerged from hyperspace with barely a ripple, its advanced progenitor-derived drives leaving almost no trace of its passage. On the bridge, Admiral Lena Okafor, promoted after the success of the Pathfinder mission, studied the quarantined world before them. Vega Prime hung like a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. According to the progenitor archives, this planet had been isolated by the Council over 300 years ago when its inhabitants developed faster than light communications, too quickly for the Council's comfort. "Life. Science confirmed," reported Science Officer Raj Patel, now commander after years of loyal service. "Their technology level appears similar to our early 21st century. Definitely pre-hyperspace. Any council presence? Lena asked. Single monitoring station in high orbit on the far side of the planet, answered Tactical Officer Luis Escobar. Minimal crew automated systems. Standard quarantine protocol. Lena nodded. Begin broadcast on their primary communication frequencies. Use the first contact package we prepared. Minutes later, the planet below erupted in activity as the Vegans, a humanoid species with distinctive ridged foreheads and golden skin, realized they were not alone in the universe. Or rather, that they were not forgotten. The Vegan response was cautious at first, then increasingly curious as the Liberation's diplomatic team explained the truth. That Earth too had been quarantined, that humanity had broken free, and that they came offering alliance rather than conquest. They're requesting visual communication, Raj reported. Their leadership council wants to speak with you directly. Lena straightened her uniform and nodded. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a chamber of 9 golden-skinned beings. Their leader, identified as first speaker Noral, leaned forward with eyes that shone with barely contained emotion. Is it true? He asked without preamble. The Galactic Council abandoned you as they did us? And you found a way to defy them? It's true, Lena confirmed. And we believe there are many others like us throughout the galaxy. Species deemed too unpredictable, too innovative, or simply too different to fit into their controlled system. Noral exchanged glances with his colleagues. The Council told us we were quarantined for our own protection, that we needed centuries more development before we would be ready to join galactic society. They lied, Lena said simply. We've discovered the truth about the Council itself. They are engineered caretakers designed to maintain the galaxy according to a plan created by an ancient race. And that plan doesn't include species like ours that evolved naturally. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Vegan leadership. After hours of further communication and exchange of evidence, they reached a decision that would change the course of their civilization. We accept your offer of alliance, Noral declared, but we need your help to break free of our quarantine. Within weeks, the Liberation had neutralized the Council monitoring station, replacing its automated signals with false data that would continue to report a properly isolated, slowly developing civilization. Meanwhile, Earth ships delivered advanced technology and hyperspace-capable vessels to the eager Vegans. This pattern repeated across the galaxy over the next 20 years. Earth vessels, growing more sophisticated with each iteration, sought out quarantined worlds identified in the progenitor archives. One by one, these forgotten species joined what became known as the Alliance of Free Worlds, the Sirians, with their remarkable mathematical abilities. The Dravidi, master geneticists who had been contained for their dangerous biological research. The crystalline Lithians whose silicon-based biology had been deemed too alien for inclusion in the Council. Each brought unique strengths, perspectives, and technologies to the growing alliance, and all operated in complete secrecy, hidden from Council awareness by progenitor cloaking technology and careful manipulation of monitoring systems. 30 years after Earth's exile, Admiral Okafor, now Supreme Commander of the Alliance Fleet, stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, the massive headquarters constructed in a region of space the Council ships physically could not perceive. Below her, representatives from 27 formerly quarantined species mingled in the central plaza, discussing trade agreements, technological exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The alliance had grown from a desperate idea into a thriving reality, spanning nearly a third of the galaxy but invisible to its supposed rulers. Director Victor Kapoor, now in his 70s but still sharp-minded, joined her at the viewport. Not bad for a quarantined species, wouldn't you say? He remarked with a smile. Lena nodded. We've built something remarkable, Victor. Something truly free. And yet you seem troubled, she sighed. We can't hide forever. Each year the Council expands into new territories. Eventually they'll stumble upon one of our worlds, or their sensors will improve enough to detect our activities. What are you suggesting? That we stop reacting and start acting, Lena replied firmly. The time has come to reveal ourselves to the galaxy, not just to the Council but to all the ordinary worlds under their control. To offer them a choice. Victor studied her for a long moment. That would mean war. Not necessarily, she countered. The Council rules through manufactured consensus and controlled information. If their member worlds learn the truth about the progenitors, about natural evolution, about the quarantined species, many might choose to join us willingly. The proposal was controversial among the Alliance leadership. Some argued for continued secrecy and expansion. Others feared the Council's vast military resources. But in the end, the decision was made. The Alliance would reveal itself to the galaxy on its own terms. The plan was executed with precision. On a single day, Alliance representatives appeared simultaneously on 50 major Council worlds, broadcasting the truth about the galaxy's history and offering membership in a new galactic community, based on freedom rather than control. The Council's response was immediate and predictable: denunciation of the Alliance as dangerous rebels, orders for their arrest, deployment of military vessels to the worlds where they had appeared, but the Alliance had anticipated this. Their representatives vanished before they could be captured, leaving behind data crystals containing irrefutable evidence of the Council's true nature and origins. Doubt began to spread through Council space. Questions arose that the Arbiter and his inner circle couldn't easily dismiss. And when several frontier worlds declared their intention to leave the Council and join the Alliance, the galaxy stood on the brink of conflict. In orbit around the contested planet Meridian, a Council battle fleet faced off against Alliance defenders. The planet's population had voted to join the Alliance, but the Council refused to recognize their decision. "This is Council Admiral Thorin," came the transmission to the Alliance flagship Defiance. "You are in violation of Council law. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Commander Diego Mendez, captain of the Defiance and veteran of countless Alliance missions, responded calmly. "This planet has made its choice freely, Admiral. We are here at their invitation. The Council no longer has authority here. You leave us no choice but to—" The Council Admiral's transmission cut off abruptly as new ships emerged from hyperspace. Not Alliance vessels, but Council ships bearing the insignia of worlds that had previously remained neutral in the growing conflict. Alliance vessel Defiance. "This is Admiral Kira of Altair," came a new voice. "We stand with Meridian and the Alliance of Free Worlds. The Council does not speak for all its members any longer." The Council fleet hesitated, suddenly outnumbered by their own supposed allies. After a tense standoff, they withdrew without firing a shot. News of this confrontation spread rapidly across Council space. More worlds began questioning the authority of the Galactic Council. Some demanded reforms. Others sought alliance with the upstart Federation of formerly quarantined species. The Council's unity began to fracture along lines that had been invisible for millennia, divisions between those worlds that embraced the static order of the progenitor's design and those that yearned for the dynamism and innovation the Alliance represented. The galactic balance of power shifted. Supreme Commander Okafor received a surprising transmission, a request for direct communication from the Grand Arbiter himself. "After all these years," she murmured as the request appeared on her screen. "Now he wants to talk." The leadership of the Alliance debated whether to accept the communication. Some saw it as a trap, others as an opportunity. In the end, Lena made the decision herself. "I'll hear what he has to say," she declared, but not alone and not from a position of weakness. The meeting was arranged on neutral territory, a space station, orbiting an uninhabited world at the edge of what was rapidly becoming a new border between Council and Alliance space. As Lena prepared to board her shuttle, Admiral Rivera, now well into his 80s but still serving as an advisor, offered a final thought. "Remember who we are, Lena," he said quietly. "We didn't build an empire to replace their tyranny with our own. We built it to offer freedom to all species, even those who once exiled us." She nodded solemnly. "I know, and perhaps that's what truly terrifies them." The shuttle departed, carrying not just the Supreme Commander but representatives from a dozen Alliance. The neutral space station hung suspended between two worlds, literally and figuratively. Through its panoramic viewports, the representatives of the Galactic Council could see their vessels arrayed on one side of the system. On the other, the ships of the Alliance of Free Worlds maintained their position, their distinctive designs representing dozens of formerly quarantined species. Supreme Commander Lena Okafor walked the corridor toward the main conference chamber, flanked by her delegation. Beside her strode First Speaker Noral of the Vegans, Director Zalara of the Crystalline Lithians, and High Technician Drav of the Sirayans. Following behind were representatives of 8 other species who had all shared the same fate, deemed too unpredictable by the Council, and cast aside. They entered the chamber to find the Council delegation already seated. At their center sat the Grand Arbiter, his mercurial skin now dulled with age but still shifting with subtle emotions. Lena recognized none of the other Council representatives, unsurprising after 40 years. But she did recognize the look in their eyes. Not fear, but something deeper, confusion, uncertainty. The universe no longer functioned according to their programming. Supreme Commander Okafor, the Grand Arbiter acknowledged with a nod that might have been respect or merely protocol. You have changed since we last met. Lena smiled thinly. So has the Galaxy Arbiter. The formal introductions proceeded with rigid courtesy. Once completed, the Arbiter activated the chamber's privacy field, ensuring their discussions would remain unheard by anyone outside the room. Let us dispense with diplomatic niceties, he began. Your alliance has disrupted the peace and stability of the galaxy. You have interfered with quarantined worlds under Council protection. You have encouraged secession among Council member worlds. This cannot continue. Peace and stability, Lena repeated. Interesting terms for stagnation and control. The Arbiter's skin darkened slightly. We maintain the natural order. There is nothing natural about your order, countered First Speaker Noral, his golden skin gleaming under the chamber lights. We know the truth about the progenitors, about how the Council species were engineered to serve their purposes. A ripple of discomfort passed through the Council delegation. One of them, a Vorzian with elaborate ceremonial markings, leaned forward. These are dangerous lies, he hissed. The Council has guided galactic civilization for 50,000 years. We preserved knowledge through dark ages. We prevented wars between worlds. We lifted primitive species to the stars. You controlled their development, Director Zalara corrected, her crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. You ensured they followed the same path you did. Any species that showed too much independence was isolated as we were. For their protection, insisted another Council member. For your comfort, Lena countered. Natural evolution frightens you because it wasn't part of the progenitors' plan. But the progenitors themselves valued it. Why else would they leave their archives accessible only to unaltered species like ours? The Grand Arbiter raised a hand for silence. For a long moment he studied Lena and her allies with those ancient silver eyes. You believe you understand the progenitors' intentions, he finally said, his voice softer than before. But you have accessed only fragments of their legacy. The Council has preserved their full vision for tens of thousands of years. Then you admit they engineered your species? Lena pressed. We were shaped, the Arbiter conceded reluctantly, given purpose, direction. The progenitors seeded the galaxy with life, then guided the most promising species to form what would become the Council. They entrusted us with maintaining their grand design until their prophesied return. And that design included suppressing any naturally evolved intelligence, Drav stated, his mathematical mind cutting directly to the core issue. Natural evolution is chaotic, the Arbiter responded, unpredictable. It produces species with dangerous capabilities and no inherent restraint. The progenitors understood this danger. Lena shook her head. Yet they created those archive stations specifically for unaltered species to find. They wanted multiple approaches to development, not just your controlled path. You cannot possibly understand. Can't we? Lena interrupted. We've found 17 archive stations so far. Each contains different knowledge, different perspectives. The progenitors weren't creating gardeners to maintain a single type of order. They were creating a garden where multiple forms of intelligence could flourish. The chamber fell silent as the Council delegates exchanged uncertain glances. Doubt had entered their perfectly ordered worldview. Even if what you say has merit, the Arbiter finally said, the fact remains that your alliance threatens galactic stability. Already 26 Council worlds have declared independence. Trade routes are disrupted. Defense pacts strained. We stand at the precipice of chaos, or at the threshold of true freedom, Lena countered. For the first time in 50,000 years, species can choose their own path, develop according to their own nature, not a predetermined design. And what would you have us do? Asked the Arbiter. Surrender our authority? Watch as the careful balance of millennia crumbles. Lena stood walking slowly around the table until she stood directly before the Grand Arbiter. Despite her age, she was well into her 70s now. She carried herself with the dignity of someone who had helped reshape a galaxy. "We're not asking you to surrender," she said quietly. "We're asking you to evolve, to recognize that the galaxy is large enough for multiple approaches to civilization. The Council can continue to guide worlds that desire your stable, predictable path. The Alliance will offer an alternative for those who seek something different." "Coexistence," murmured the Arbiter as if testing an unfamiliar concept. "More than that," Lena pressed. "Mutual recognition, the exchange of knowledge and resources, and an end to the practice of quarantining species simply for developing differently." The negotiations continued for days, stretching into weeks. Word of the historic summit spread throughout both Council and Alliance space. Populations that had never questioned the Council's authority began to wonder what might emerge from these discussions. Worlds that had already declared for the Alliance watched anxiously, fearing a return to conflict. Finally, on the 23rd day, the delegates emerged from the conference chamber with the framework of an agreement that would reshape galactic civilization. The Galactic Concordat, as it came to be known, divided the galaxy not by territory but by choice. Worlds could freely select membership in either the Council or the Alliance, with provisions for neutrality or dual association. The practice of quarantine was abolished, replaced by a system of graduated contact that respected each developing world's cultural integrity, while offering them a voice in their own future. Most revolutionary of all, a new joint exploration initiative was established to locate and study the remaining progenitor archives, seeking greater understanding of the ancients' true intentions for the galaxy they had seeded with life. As the delegates prepared to depart the station, the Grand Arbiter approached Lena privately. 40 years ago, in the Council chamber, you warned us we were making a grave miscalculation," he said. "I did not understand then what you meant." Lena studied the ancient being before her. "And now? Now I see that in trying to preserve the progenitor's design, we had forgotten its purpose. They did not create us to remain static, but to grow, to learn, perhaps even to transcend their guidance eventually. That's a profound realization," Lena acknowledged. "One that would never have come without your disruption." The Arbiter's skin shifted to a shade she had never seen before, perhaps the Zeridian equivalent of wry amusement. "You humans have an extraordinary capacity for causing exactly the changes you think necessary." "It's our gift," Lena replied with a smile. "Or our curse, depending on one's perspective," the Arbiter extended. All four of his upper limbs in the traditional Council gesture of respect, something no human had ever received before. "When your species returns to its home world to celebrate this concordat," he said, "please convey a message to Ambassador Vega, if he still lives." Marcus retired years ago. "But yes, he's still with us," Lena confirmed. Surprised. "What message?" "Tell him that his words in the Council chamber 4 decades ago have finally been fulfilled. Humanity has indeed returned to galactic society, not as supplicants but as equals. Perhaps even as teachers," Lena nodded solemnly. "I'll tell him." 2 months later, the formal signing of the Galactic Concordat took place on Earth itself, a symbolic acknowledgement of humanity's central role in reshaping the galaxy's future. In the Grand Plaza of New Geneva, representatives from hundreds of worlds, Council, Alliance, and newly independent gathered under an open sky. The ceremony was broadcast throughout known space, watched by trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Lena stood on the edge of the platform, watching as the Grand Arbiter and President Kaido of Earth signed the final document together. Behind her, Marcus Vega sat in a hover chair, his face lined with age but his eyes bright with vindication. "Did you imagine this outcome when you faced the Council all those years ago?" she asked him quietly. The old diplomat chuckled. "Not in detail, no, but I knew humanity would find its own path. We always do.